imagine, not everything that comes out of the pit is coal. Sometimes slate, stone, what we call muck, gets mixed in with the coal. And that has to be sorted. And that was sorted in the screens. And initially, when women came out of the pit, they went to work in the screens. And they would stand alongside this conveyor belt, and they would pick out the lumps of rock, the lumps of dirt, the lumps of muck from the conveyor belt, just leaving coal. I've talked a lot about mining in its relation to young men. It was a male-dominated occupation. But to paraphrase a saying, behind every miner, there was a miner's wife. Not just a miner's wife, a miner's mother, a miner's sister, a miner's female cousins. There was a female hierarchy. There is a female hierarchy in mining communities. Women were equally important in getting the coal out of the pit as men were.
What difficulties did it have for you as a wife of a miner?
Well, you didn't think about it. It was just a way of life, not just for me, for all women in the village. Because in pit villages, obviously, that's what it were. Or everybody's husband worked at pit, and it was like your mum watching your dad go to factory or something else. You just didn't think about what happened once they got there and went underground. If you'd have thought about it, you wouldn't have been able to breathe.
Same as I mentioned earlier, Denise, that to other group, I says, we were all right. We were on selfish end. We were going.
Yeah.
You know, we were going. You didn't think twice. All right. When I was a single lad, I always went and kissed my mum before I went to the pit, because you never know if that might be the last thing that she ever remembers of you. And when I got married and I always kissed my wife before I went to the pit, for the same reason. But we were on the selfish end. But I know Chrissy, I mean, my wife, if anything had happened at pit, we had a bad habit of taking it home. Yes. And you know, if there'd been somebody had got hurt or things had happened that had not gone right, we took it. And I think miners' wives were very, very brilliant politicians. They'd made better politicians than what we've got walking now, because they knew how to cope with different things. They've got a multitude of things to cope with. And I've always said I take my hat off. I had the easiest job, being a miner. I don't mind admitting it. My wife had the hard job.
Dirtiest job you've ever known. They used to bring the clothes home. Socks, underpants. Well, they weren't underpants, they were shorts, and most of them were raggy and held together with red and yellow wire. Am I telling the truth? If a button come off, they called it shot firing wire, which I do know they used to blast coal with, and they used to fasten them up with them, and they used to bring them home, and you had to bang them on the wall outside before you put them into the washer. Obviously, they went in the washer last. And they were filthy and stunk. I had a son and his socks used to jump into the washer themselves. Ugh.
What was the role of the wife of a miner?
Well, you had to stay at home and you had to carry them about. As well as looking after your children and doing everything. When they come home, the dinner had to be on the table and paper ready. And once they came home, that were it. They used to have the dinner. They either went out into the garden or they went and had an hour in bed. If they were on days, because we were up about 4 o'clock, they'd have the dinner. They'd have an hour, well, 10 minutes with paper, then up to bed. But they did garden and things besides, but they didn't do housework and washing and ironing and cooking. They did later, but not earlier. Not when I was first married, they didn't. But as years went on, everybody shared.
I think you'll agree with this, that a lot of these young ladies in the room today, you're looking for careers, aren't you? You're going to take your A-levels, you're going to university, hopefully, and you're looking for a career. Well, in a sense, that weren't our generation. For a lot of women, their career, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, their career was to see their families provided for in a different way than going to work and bringing money in. And I think it was a regime. The men didn't expect any more from them or any less, and they didn't expect any more than us going to work and bringing the bread in. I think that's fair, isn't it?
That's fair.
But all that from the 70s began to change. When people became more affluent, women, when they had raised their sons to a certain age, looked for work, for part-time jobs. And those part-time jobs sometimes led on to careers.
And my working life started in 72 after the strike. And I went out and I got a job. And I worked for 3 months. And that paid all the arrears off on everything. And then I worked another 3 months and that took us all on holiday. But then I didn't work no more until 1974. And I don't know how long they were on strike. Were it 6 weeks?
6.
So from 3 weeks I had to go out to work to get back on straight and narrow. So after 6 weeks it was same. And I had, in 72, I had a little girl at 2 and a little boy at 4. Little boy at 4 went to school and we used to chase down to my mother's with him. And she'd pick him up from school. And then in 1974, it was same. And I went to work in 1974 and I worked just a year. And that got us holiday, a lovely Christmas and all his debts paid. And then, well, once my husband, and these are same, once their wives started bringing money in and children were at school, all it were all right to go to work then. And that's when my working life, other than looking after home, started.
The biggest change, though, I would date, came from the miners' strike. Not only were miners on strike, not only were miners fighting the pit closures, but also women from mining communities were fighting the pit closures because they saw that the closure of the mine as a direct threat to them, to their children, to their husbands, to their community. And they became, to use a word, very radicalised. A lot of women who were involved in activities, not just at soup kitchens, not just in raising money, but in things like picketing. They became very radicalised.
I can't say we did lose, but I don't think I did, because me and another few women, and we clogged on and we opened a community centre, and it's still going. In fact, it's better now than it was when we started.
But it did enable women, didn't it? It did sort of give some women confidence and opportunities to go out and do things.
Because I were always on Marthy's side.
I know you were.
My mother never went out of work, and I know we've talked about this previously, but I believe that then it was also an era that liberated women to go out to work and think, well, you know, his life's changed. I'm no longer waiting for him to come home from the mine. What could I do? And so the younger generation within the mining community suddenly found that they were career-minded, which is a good thing.